Hello and welcome to the second episode of NETLORE. We are going to be talking about Newgrounds today.
I always liked the site. I just was never like a artist type. The thought of making a Flash animation was just so far beyond. Like that's just animation is so fucking hard, dude. I'm not even an artist.
I'm the dedicated art fucking slave to this podcast.
He's the art guy. He's the one who draws all the cool art shit you're gonna see.
All two of them.
I'm referring to the future undrawn pieces in this as well.
It's crazy that the site has been around for so long and it's almost become more relevant than it ever has in the past.
That's the weirdest part for me, because there's plenty of kids who never heard of Newgrounds before, and then all this Friday Night Funkin' stuff happened. But to me, I've been aware of it for ages, and I was almost just surprised it even managed to survive Flash going down. You know what I mean? That seems like that could have been the end of that site.
They definitely were able to persevere and adapt to the changing times.
Exactly.
In late 2020, Newgrounds saw a resurgence in cultural relevance following the success of Friday Night Funkin'. It showed a lot of the site's history to a demographic that never would have seen it otherwise, but that has obviously led to some conflict given the edgier sides of its past. One of these conflicts came after the Tankman update. During a cutscene, Johnny Utah makes a joke about Pico originating from a game about school shootings.
Look who it is, your sexually ambiguous, angry little friend. Don't you have a school to shoot up?
It's funny, though, because he's
not the school shooter.
Exactly. He's
he's stopping
it's self-defense. It's just a touchy subject, I guess, in general.
What many people don't realize is that Newgrounds has had a lot of controversies, specifically in regards to games about school shooters. To get this out of the way up front, this episode is not about Jeff Weiss, an actual spree killer who happened to have a Newgrounds account. He had an account named Regret, and he uploaded 2 Flash games called Clown and Target Practice.
They weren't games, were they? I thought they were just short little Flash animations. I remember when that news broke, I went and I watched one. And, one of the animations is Target Practice. He's just shooting random people, and then he kills himself. And I was just damn. That's fucked up, bro. That's foreshadowing.
Yeah, this episode is not about Jeff Weiss. Instead, this is about a user named PiGPEN, also known as Ryan Lambourn, who joined Newgrounds on May 11th, 2005. And a quick glance across his profile shows he wasn't very different from a lot of other people on the site. He was an artist, musician, and a game developer. But most of all, he was really fucking edgy. It's do you know PiGPEN at all? Does this name ring a bell?
Honestly, I like I said, I wasn't super deep in the community, so if they weren't super famous, I definitely remember this controversy, but I don't know the guy at all or anything like that.
Okay. He didn't make anything of note for 2 years until 2007, when he would go from just being another creator to one of the most infamous on the site, where even you've heard of this game.
Right. I mean, I'm going to let you get into it before I mention.
Due to the nature of what these games are, we're going to have to explain the incidents that they're based on. In the early hours of April 16th, 2007, a student named Sung Hui Cho went on a mass shooting spree at Virginia Tech University. During the nearly 3-hour rampage, Cho killed 32 people and wounded 17 others. To this day, it is the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history.
Also known as the high score.
It's not the high score, by the way.
At the school, okay, you can cut that part out. I was just doing a goof.
No, we'll leave that one in. You're getting canceled.
This is what I get for letting Bernie edit this bullshit.
Yeah, I'm the editor. So.
Well, it's just fucking crazy to me to explain this. I'm who the fuck doesn't know about this? But then I was obviously, if you were alive and you heard about this, it was all over the news when it happened. Yeah. And then I have to keep reminding myself that fucking the Zoomers listening to this.
I was 5 years old, I think, when this happened. So 4 years old.
We're gonna get into this later, but one of the big media things they were having a meltdown about was oh, they looked on his computer, he had Counter-Strike. This guy played fucking Counter-Strike. He's a fucking gamer. Folks, he did it because of games. We're gonna blame the games here.
Yeah. Video games cause violence. That's really where this all ties in, because, in that time of national grieving, when people were trying to figure out why he did it, they got his manifesto and they aired that on television, and then they looked at his computer and found video games. People had the same fears they had about Columbine, where was the media making them do this?
Right. That was a huge thing in Columbine. They kept beating the drum about Marilyn Manson and the fucking the Doom wads, that he had made.
Natural Born Killers, that movie they loved.
Yeah, exactly. That was such a huge issue.
Obviously, you can tell what's going to happen when someone decides to base a game around the incident, especially when the conversation is already if video games cause violence. So On May 15th, 2007, just 3 weeks after the shooting, PiGPEN released a game called VTech Rampage.
It was, again, not to sound like I'm endorsing it, but it was some pretty expertly crafted outrage bait. Like, he knew people were going to get mad about it and controversial, and, like, it worked, so.
It's not just that it had Cho as the protagonist. It recreated a loose timeline of events with each stage based off a different part of the massacre.
Yeah, both for like practical reasons and whatever. I'm not sure exactly how much you want to like show of this or whatever on screen.
Yeah, we'll have it on screen, some gameplay.
But yeah, I was going to say, you can see, it's not like the most realistic game of all time, but it doesn't have to be. That's not the point. The fact that it just is what it is.
Yeah, when you actually look at how like the game's constructed, it's pretty poorly made.
Right.
But that's not the point. The game's like filled with slurs. The female characters who are based off victims offer to have sex with you. And he even made a tribute song for the mass shooter.
I don't really remember that part, to be honest.
You don't wanna fuck with me. I hit you up with the key. You don't wanna fuck with me. Key, bitch, key. Yo, let me tell you about this slut, Emily. She likes to take it in the butt. Her boyfriend.
God damn. That was, again, clearly designed to be inflammatory.
So if you look at the game's page today, it currently has over 500,000 views, which, yeah, as you mentioned, is because it got mainstream coverage. To this day, people call it one of the most evil games of all time. Which, do you agree with that? Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's almost giving him too much credit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's just, I guess I could say it might be one of the most mean-spirited. I mean, I don't know what's the criteria here that were.
Because there's a lot of mean-spirited games, but how many of them are based on like an incident with real victims?
Yeah, I guess that's a pretty fair argument.
I guess evil is a charged word. The only intent was to piss people off. And to make it worse, by the way, one of the things that people argue makes it more evil is that he was basically holding like a bounty. He was saying you should PayPal him $2,000 if you want to remove.
If he was doing like all of it, like, okay, so yeah, I guess you're right. Like, it would be a little more fucked up if he was doing all this purely for mercenary reasons, not like just artistic freedom of speech. Like, not that like that makes it all good or anything, but you know, like at least that's more comprehensible to me. I mean, I guess they're both equally comprehensible motives.
Yeah, we'll get into the artistic merit of it. What's interesting is that, yeah, there really wasn't a message behind this game. There wasn't a political thesis to it. It's really just, I want to piss people off. So this game even got the attention of politicians. New York State Senator Andrew Lanza called for it to be boycotted, not understanding that this is an indie game project and no one else was involved.
Boycott this fucking Newgrounds game. Nobody play it, please. Nobody play it.
Newgrounds was flooded with journalists, families of the victims, concerned citizens, and just anyone who wanted the game removed. Even the RIAA got involved, leading to some copyrighted music being removed. It was replaced with PiGPEN chanting, "Hey, hey, hey, fuck the RIAA."
Hey, fuck the RIAA. Hey, fuck the RIAA.
Which honestly is kind of base.
Pretty good move.
You know, fuck
pretty
the
funny.
RIAA.
See, this guy's got a sense of humor.
It's pretty base.
Whether
fuck
you
him.
approve of his horrific, cruel game or not.
Surprisingly, Newgrounds chose not to censor the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I'm kind of glad, especially at least in that point in history, that, you know, I'm really not one of these, like, defend free speech at all costs guys, but, like, if they took this down, then some other person would make another, like, rage bait thing, and then, like, they would have to find the new line to draw, and it would have just been, like, a sort of never-ending cycle.
It's hard to draw a line like that and enforce it unilaterally.
Mm-hmm.
6 days after VTech Rampage went live, Ross Snyder, a former admin and one of the original creators of the site, issued a statement about these takedown requests. It's titled, "What Makes Newgrounds Great?" Now, I'm not going to read the whole post, just some snippets I thought were the most important. Newgrounds evolved from a showcase for Tom's work into a showcase for everyone's work, free of the usual moral judgment and censorship. Newgrounds found its niche and flourished, and today we have one of the most unique communities on the internet. While we do have some loose content guidelines, the site is still a haven for artists that might not have any place else to gain exposure for their work. As the saying goes, I might disagree with what PiGPEN is doing, but I'll forever defend his right to do it. Telling him that his game should not be allowed on Newgrounds goes against the principles upon which this site was founded. You're entitled to form any opinion you like about him, but once we take away his right to put it here on Newgrounds, we lose track of what makes Newgrounds great.
He makes a very good point about just like, not the whole site was this edgy or anything, but there was an overall culture of the site back then that was leaning more towards edginess and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, you talk about like Shadman. He was on that site for the longest time.
So this is sort of just a natural end result of this kind of thing, I think. I don't know. It's also just interesting to me that, like, again, he has a good point about, like, this is sort of the philosophy of Newgrounds, and it's really one of the only places, like, left like that, because, like, there's no philosophy like that on YouTube, you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't want any content like this.
I think it's a very admirable position to have, especially when you consider Newgrounds was not just making a statement to the media. They were risking their payment processors, they were risking advertisements, they were risking their hosting, all of this lying on, like, the deadliest mass shooting of all time in 2007.
Right. It would have been way easier for them to just remove it, and they would have gotten brownie points from the media or whatever from being like, they removed this horrible guy.
But Newgrounds is a site that truly does try to enable the growth and development of art, even though you might not get that all the time when you look at their front page and it's all like titillating women and shit, or Friday Night Funkin' fan art.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it's like...
They do try.
And right, that and like parodies of popular media is always what rises at the top, because that's just what the most people will recognize and click on. But like, there's still a great undercurrent of like creativity, and like, you can just tell the site, the culture, and the community all like care more about that than plenty of other places, plenty of other content aggregation areas, you know what I mean? Like Reddit and Twitter and stuff.
While we've so far like discussed how disgusting we find the game, I have to agree with what Ross says in that statement, which is he has the right to make it.
I think, especially considering how farcical this game was, like, this is such a clear-cut case
I would still call him like a fucking edgelord.
Yeah. It's not my cup of tea exactly. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm defending him too hard, but...
Yeah, you're sounding like a PiGPEN stan, dude.
I don't know.
I'm worried that like when we stop recording, you're gonna launch up that game.
I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like it's like, I feel like I'm obligated to play a little bit of devil's advocate. You know what I mean? It'd be a little cringe for us both to come on here.
Play a little bit of VTech Rampage.
For us both to come on here and be like, fuck this guy. What an edgelord loser. You know what I mean? Like, and like you said, he's still around. I'm sure the things he's making now are not like, he's not like, oh, let me look at the mass shootings today and make a thing making fun of that. This was more of like a sort of juvenile, artistic, creative process thing. If you're listening to this and you just hate him and you think it's completely vile and he deserves every bad thing.
Cybershell disagrees with you.
I know. I honestly think that's a fair stance. It's just, I don't know. I'm too jaded. I grew up on the shitty, early, mean internet, so this kind of thing just doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know if you were going to bring this up, I was more familiar with a different game called Super Columbine Massacre RPG.
This is actually the exact point I was about to get into Daniel Ladon.
Let's get into this then.
Okay, so I pointed out before that PiGPEN is a troll. There isn't really a political message behind his game, which makes it pretty hard to defend on like an artistic level. In contrast, we have to look at Daniel Ladon. Danny is the creator of the equally, if not more infamous, Super Columbine Massacre RPG. Its name is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I have to explain what that is.
It's an RPG Maker game, if you were curious, yes. And it's basically sort of the same vibe where it's sort of step-by-step recreating the massacre, but like, you know, you would walk the hallways and get into like an RPG Maker battle with some students or whatever. There's even a very ridiculous part at the end where you die and you go to hell and you have to like...
through hell.
You fight all these like copyrighted characters and then you can like, you fight Satan from South Park at the end. I don't know the exact date, but obviously Super Columbine Massacre RPG, whatever, it was made quite a few years later.
Yeah.
I think the VTech thing was way more hot issue because, like you said, 3 weeks.
Not that, inherently, like, if that game was released a year later, it would make it better.
Right.
But just to, like, show the difference. With Super Columbine Massacre RPG, it is worth pointing out that even if you don't think the commentary is very well done, it's still there. The dialogue in the game, a lot of it is in reference to pervasive rumors about the shooters and debunking them. It's a meta commentary about the alleged role of video games in school shootings. If I recall correctly, there was even a victim from Columbine who said they were really happy that a game like this was made because they recognized the merit of it.
Right. That game in particular, like, there was a little documentary made about it, like that sparked a whole discussion. Like that one in particular was way more like productive.
The documentary, if anyone's interested, is Playing Columbine. It's about Danny trying to get his game submitted to a indie festival and it getting rejected. I think it was the semifinals. Tom Fulp appears in it, the creator of Newgrounds.
The open letter was basically a lot of the developers expressing their opinion that they felt that, Super Columbine Massacre shouldn't have been pulled from the competition.
Yeah, like it has a bit of like Columbine like lore, like some of the
lore.
behind the scenes. Well, like the tapes those fucking kids left behind,
the
and like
tapes.
they call each other Reb and vodka or whatever. Yeah, like it leans on that kind of stuff, and like I probably shouldn't have called it lore, but you know what I mean.
But I think, especially at the time, when you compare the information that was circulated back then compared to now, that game helped clear up a lot of the confusion, because that was when the narrative of the event was really being pushed and pulled by different groups trying to portray the shooters as one way or the other, or like entertainment as having this influence or that influence.
Yeah.
This game, it's not perfect, but there is a greater purpose to it, a greater intent to it.
Again, it's sort of weird to try to explain this, but like this one school shooting game joke game is way less tasteless than this other school shooting joke game, but it actually is.
I think one thing that really helps put that into perspective is Danny went on to become a film professor at a university. It shows the difference in their approach. Danny went on to go into academia.
Right. Well, do you have the part in your notes about when he emailed the PiGPEN?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of the whole point of bringing this up. The media did little to differentiate the two. They saw VTech Rampage and they're like, this is just Super Columbine Massacre RPG again, which had gone through a similar controversy, but Danny had been able to defend himself somewhat. So Danny decided to do it himself. He left a comment on PiGPEN's website pointing out why his game was different. We shouldn't be thinking about whether a game about Virginia Tech should be made, but how we might go about making a game that accomplishes more than what PiGPEN does with the subject matter. It's a pretty good point. And then PiGPEN would respond to him in private by yelling profanity at him, which I can only imagine what he called Daniel Adon, you know?
Yeah, it probably wasn't too kind. Again, I doubt there's any sort of like bad blood between these guys these days. But yeah, there was kind of just a funny little interaction. I had no idea those two like had like an interaction like that.
I did find a different article from Destructoid where both of them were interviewed but in separate conversations. The article is titled Virtual School Shootings, interviewing two of the most hated game creators alive. The interview with PiGPEN is interesting because he does actually make a few artistic defenses for his game.
Like what?
I'll read this quote. If anything, this should help push it as an art form. The industry tends to put out nothing but games as toys. It's for playing, not experiencing, unless they want to sound artsy to sell a game.
I'll give him some credit there. He actually does make a sort of cogent point. Like, the point of VTech Rampage is not to be a toy. It's to make you mad. It's to make you feel an emotion and like, or disgust. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not necessarily anger.
I have another quote from him where he says, trolling is an art in of itself. Is he right?
He's got that troll face going on. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's right, but I don't know. People get too into trolling is a little.
He even compares it to the game Takeshi's Challenge.
I don't know if I would necessarily like a finely tuned. Well, okay, I don't say finely tuned challenge. Takeshi's Challenge isn't Kaizo Mario, but it is like a sort of different kind of weird bullshit game.
That game is it's a very meta experience.
That game pisses you off, right? Like it's about a game pissing you off.
It's clearly trying to provoke the player.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I can see where he's coming from. I've always liked and been interested in art that has a sort of adversarial stance with the audience. You know what I mean? Where it's sort of challenging you. That's a fairly cogent point on his part, even if it is at post hoc reasoning, just because he wanted to make an offensive game.
Just to balance it out. The interview, for the most part, isn't that cogent.
Mm-hmm.
He is pretty egotistical about it all. He calls himself a heartless bastard, and then says, "I'm perfectly content laughing at the hypocrisy of everyone and taking my title as Troll of the Year."
What an edgelord.
Yeah. Like, come on, man. There is merit to trolling. There is merit to being a provocateur. But why are you making them angry? It's just for your own amusement, to satiate your own ego. You know, when Sacha Baron Cohen does it, he is trying to make a greater point.
Yeah, he's not revealing any truths here. He's just angering people because in his mind, it's funny. You know what I mean? He's made that pretty clear, at least.
As mentioned before, Danny went into film school, so he hasn't really made a game since. But PiGPEN continued. And in 2012, he would actually induce a far greater controversy than this initial one that we've been talking about. On December 14th, 2012, a 20-year-old man named Adam Lanza broke into Sandy Hook Elementary. He killed 26 people, which included 20 children. The issue of school shootings had been prevalent for a decade, but with the victims being so young, if anything was to change, it probably should have been after Sandy Hook.
He didn't make another fucking game, did he?
Yeah, okay. You kind of predicted it. Well, Sandy Hook was what brought PiGPEN back into headlines. In November of 2013, just under a year after the shooting, he released his second game based on a massacre called The Slaying of Sandy Hook Elementary. Articles were quickly written chastising Ryan, as you'd expect. For example, here is a BuzzFeed headline about the game. Someone made a video game about Sandy Hook where you play as Adam Lanza and shoot children.
Honestly, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Honestly, I fuck with it.
Honestly, pretty cool. No, okay, seriously though. I would say the VTech thing, I wanted to play devil's advocate. Now it feels like he's a one-trick pony. Like he just wanted attention again.
That is what
Thought
it
this
seems
would be
like.
another easy way to grab some headlines. And if he had something to say, like again, I don't necessarily think it should be like illegal.
Now don't jump the gun. Don't jump the gun too quick, because there is a lot more to talk about with this game. Before I want to talk about the game itself, I'll just give a little context for why this was particularly disastrous. In the original news cycle, the NRA was blaming a Flash game for inspiring Adam Lanza. It was called Kindergarten Killer. So this game had you shooting kindergartners armed with guns, and the final boss is the principal. And as you can guess, with it being a Flash game, it was hosted on Newgrounds.
Is there proof he played it, or is there just...
There is no proof.
Okay.
There is no proof that he ever played this game.
And this is complete pearl
He
clutching
was
bullshit.
actually a big fan of Dance Dance Revolution. As far as we're aware, there is no evidence he ever played Kindergarten Killer.
Right. Yeah, okay.
This was in December of 2012, I think just a month after it happened, and they were scapegoating a game found on Newgrounds.
That's wild.
Now a game was on Newgrounds about Sandy Hook. It looks really bad.
That one in particular, the media would get very upset about. I can see that causing trouble for Newgrounds and stuff, you know what I mean?
So PiGPEN's latest game was, just a shit show for Newgrounds, who had barely survived his previous outing.
Right. They literally went to bat for the guy, so it's like, this is how he repays them.
In a surprising twist, they folded.
Yeah, I honestly kind of have seen that one coming, to be honest.
On November 18th, 2013, Tom Fulp issued a statement simply titled Censorship. I'm going to read the last few paragraphs. Newgrounds has faced harsh criticism in the past for standing firm on not censoring distasteful material, namely games about school shootings. All I can say is that this game took things to a new level in terms of the age of the victims and the realism of the terror they faced on that day. I was personally contacted by Sandy Hook parents, and they expressed their understanding of what the game was attempting to communicate, but also expressed the sadness and horror it made them feel, and their desire to have it removed. Today, I'm choosing to respect the Sandy Hook parents over respect for NG's censorship policies. Either decision on this matter puts a knot in my stomach. I'm of course interested in hearing thoughts on the matter, especially from artists on the site.
He did the same fucking exact thing again that got the site in hot water. It was the same guy too. If it was a different guy, I'm gonna have to just take the extremely unbased take that it was kind of fair for them to censor the game.
So, okay, this is where we pivot. It actually is somewhat unfortunate. In spite of how tasteless VTech Rampage was, this new game was actually an art piece. It was a walking simulator emphasizing the horror of what happened.
Okay.
And it had a clear message. It was in favor of stricter gun control.
All right. If it was again, I haven't actually seen it. So again, I understand the horrific imagery it's a two-way street, because it's horrific, but there's a reason for it.
It's not like VTech Rampage. Adam Lanza is not Adam Lanza. It's a amorphous blob. It's very simplistic looking. It's very artistic. There's a clear artistic vision behind it.
There's no ambiguity about it. VTech is mocking the victims and the massacre.
Yeah.
And if this isn't doing that, then that's at least, that's honestly worth noting and making a point of. Like, if it's trying to, like, make you, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how clear that was, but, like, if it's pretty clearly and unambiguously, like, calling for it.
If we go back to the statement, you'll notice that even the Sandy Hook parents were like, oh, I actually get what he's trying to say. It's just...
Right, you mentioned that.
Now, I'm not sure what changed for him to make a more serious piece of commentary. To be fair, he was now 27 years old, so that probably played a part.
That's what I was sort of getting at earlier. Like, the VTech thing is a little juvenile. I was sort of surprised when I heard he just did it again. I was like, really? But, like,
Yeah.
Do it again, but with the purpose. I mean, that is unfortunate that it had to be censored. Again, I understand why, because Sandy Hook in particular was just a very specifically,
if you want,
controversial.
We could go through the gameplay.
Sure.
So as you can see, already from the very beginning, it takes a very minimalist approach.
I can already tell just from looking at it, it's already clearly like more artistically minded than, VTech.
There's no Adam Lanza rap.
I mean, that's kind of interesting. Okay, so like you said, it's an amorphous blob, but if this is Sandy Hook, like if it is explicitly Sandy Hook, then it like, even if they don't state it, then it's him.
If I recall, the game ends before the shooting, but I could be wrong. Oh, no, they do recreate the game.
Is it? I don't know how, like, if this is like a realistic depiction of exactly how it went down, or if it's just sort of a vague, also shooting at a school type animation.
Well, okay, this is based off the timeline of events.
That's why I was saying, like, even if it's not, it's sort of vague, but it's very also specific. It's kind of weird like that,
Do you want to hear the message from the creator?
I was going to say, is there like an explicit thing where he says or...
Okay, I didn't even know about this, so we'll react to this together.
Hi, I'm Ryan Jake Lambourn, creator of this game. Back in 2007, I created a game called VTech Rampage about the Virginia Tech shootings. In the years since, I've been routinely asked by fans of VTech to make more games of just about every mass shooting that's gotten media coverage. I'm someone who rarely follows the news, so these updates have been a constant reminder of just how commonplace mass shootings.
Oh yeah, by the way, I just noticed the credits show contact your state governor and representatives in Congress and Senate.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly has an actual, like, message. Again, maybe you hate gun control, maybe you hate the game even more now, but, like, you have to admit, it has a reason to exist.
What the hell? I thought this guy was base.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Go to sleep. Which is a stark contrast to Sydney, Australia, where I moved to in 2001. Australia had sweeping gun control put in place after the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, in which 35 people died. And the result of that sweeping regulation is guns are no longer a noticeable part of Australian culture. Back in America, though, all these massacres don't seem to have had any similar effect on regulation. Instead, gun control and enforcement has steadily loosened, and you end up with places like Chicago, where gun control is at its weakest, overtaking New York City as the murder capital of America. And here we are nearly a year after the Sandy Hook shootings, in which 26 people were killed, 20 of which were first graders, and absolutely nothing positive has come out of it. And as much as you might want to blame this entire state of affairs on politicians or the NRA, you have to remember that your representatives aren't mind readers, and the NRA is not doing anything more than motivating its members to passionately talk to those representatives about their opinions. If you're a middle-of-the-road person who, believes firearms should at least have the same amount of safety regulations as a car, then it's really on you, because your absolute apathy is why the news is unbearable to watch. So I want you to go and click that USA.gov link and find your state governor and find your representatives in Senate and Congress and shoot them an email or a phone call.
Shoot them.
I noticed that too. Just cut it off right there.
That's the least you can do. And if you feel inspired to shake off that apathy, then you can bookmark that NRA link. The NRA are kind enough to have a very orderly and up-to-date list of important gun legislation from around the country. So if you want to get involved, it's an extremely useful resource. Yeah, so, get involved. Hope you enjoyed the game, or at least got something out of it. Donka.
Okay, so after listening to that message, I don't know how much of that you're going to play on the episode. He clearly has like a point, like a reason. Like the game is designed to make you feel shitty. He wants you to use that shitty feeling and like convert it into like positive action for the world. You know what I mean? So like that is crazy that this is the game that got removed, and then the first game, which was completely mean spirited.
Yeah, VTech Rampage is still up, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So it's crazy. The game that's completely mean spirited and like mocking the victims was the one they went up for. Again, that's just a sign of the times, right? Like that's what happened, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he took the aspect of VTech Rampage that did elicit something, that it caused anger and awfulness, disgust, and he turned it into making it a message. He turned it into an effective like way to convey his opinion about like gun control, which even if you disagree, there's a merit to this. And it actually is pretty unfortunate that this is the one that got taken down.
That is a very unfortunate situation, I gotta say. I think the reason that people just get so like they can't get over the fact it's a game. Like if this was just a video or a movie, people would be like, oh, that's fucked up. But they'd probably, especially with the ending and like the message, they'd be way more like...
Yeah, you know those like really awful like PSAs where it's like, can you spot the school shooter in the background? This is an actual experience. This is an actual piece of art that forces you to acknowledge what happened in the incident. It doesn't glamorize it. It makes you feel awful for playing it. And unfortunately, it's not acknowledged as that.
When you watch a video of like a horrific event, like that makes you feel bad, but like to put yourself in like the simulated role of the gunman, like that really, I don't know, that just affects the way you think about it. And I just think people can't get over the fact that it's a game because why? Because games are games. They're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be lighthearted. So you can't make a game about something that serious. You know what I mean? Like it just rubs people the wrong way before they know anything about it. And like, it doesn't matter, you know?
And I guess to be fair, VTech Rampage poisoned a lot of the goodwill he would have had.
It's the same guy, right? It's so crazy.
A lot of the articles about this game quoted him from like 2007 calling himself a heartless bastard.
Yeah, I'm a troll, I'm edgy, I'm an edgelord or interview. That's
But he's grown. It had been 8 years, almost a decade.
That's what I was hoping would happen, and that seems like it is sort of what happened, which is kind of crazy. Like that, yeah, just I don't know. That like, yeah, people weren't receptive to this.
Now, to make it clear, I don't want to like criticize Tom Fulp for this because he acknowledges that it is an art piece.
He said his stomach was in knots. He clearly didn't enjoy having to take it down. It's just like, as I've alluded to several times, this one in particular was just an extremely politicized, like, he had to take this shit down.
It's very easy to criticize him for changing that position on censorship, but you have to realize he's prioritizing longevity.
Mm-hmm.
If he just did the same thing he did during VTech Rampage in the year 2012, it could have been really fucking bad for Newgrounds.
It could have been the end of Newgrounds.
Yeah, it could have meant the end of Newgrounds. It could not be around today.
What's the point of having free speech and censorship if like you have such free speech that your site gets shut down? You know what I mean? Again, I'm not anti-free speech here, but like he's just being practical, okay? Sometimes you just have to do the practical, not epic solution of censoring things.
It's a shame. It really is a shame. Because again, VTech Rampage is still on the site today.
It's funny because I was aware of the VTech thing. I honestly I vaguely heard about the Sandy Hook thing, but I just heard like, oh, there was a game about it, like whatever. Like I didn't.
You didn't know it was the same guy.
I didn't look into this at all because yeah, I just assumed it was the same type of situation. And if I did hear it was the same guy, then I was certainly like, oh, it's just the same thing. So it is, yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I did the same thing where I was sort of like, as soon as I heard that he did another one, I was like, oh my God, he did another one? But you can't blame me for having that reaction based on his first fucking game.
I can't blame you.
That's wild, dude. What a weird story. Yeah, that's crazy that, you know, wait, so this game was removed off of Newgrounds. We had to look.
This game has been banned off of Newgrounds.
He didn't get banned, at least. He's still like allowed to post stuff, I guess.
Yeah, he didn't get banned, but the game was banned.
Do you know about any other like situations of Newgrounds banning things besides, you know, like, you know, things that break the rules, obviously?
Yeah, they banned porn of Jaden animations.
That's exactly what I was going to be like, besides like pornographic, horrible things like that. Yeah, but this was like controversial in the news. Like, I don't know.
Now, where is Ryan Lambourn today? It has been 2 years almost since his last post on social media. He hasn't been active since August of 2020. The last thing I found on his itch.io is a comic he made, which actually looked pretty interesting. I haven't read it yet, but as far as I'm aware, he's not online anymore.
He is offline, apparently. That's, I don't know. I almost want to say, like, unfortunate, but, like, maybe good, maybe it's better. I don't know. Maybe it's just, maybe it doesn't mean anything at all. I'm curious. I'm interested in his other artistic endeavors, certainly.
It'd be interesting to talk to him one day.
Yeah, I'd interview him if he hears this episode where we sort of roast him. But, I think we were sort of even-handed, like I said. I took the least based possible take, which is I defended VTech, and then I sort of defended the censorship. But I don't know. Like I said, devil's advocate.
What do you think about Newgrounds censorship and that prestige of wanting to be the haven for artists, no matter how controversial? Because we've seen a lot of the people that were bastioned back then get slowly derided for what they were doing back then. I mean, you had a lot of creators making super offensive content that nowadays, if people dug them back up, they would get canceled for it. I started this with Friday Night Funking, like fans getting angry that Pico was being called a school shooter because they didn't know where he was from. What do you make of it all?
I don't know, man. It's like, I think I might have come off as a little pro-censorship, but I'm just being practical here. Like, it's so easy to say never censor anything when you're not the one in charge of the site and you're not the one getting banned from all the payment processors.
Yeah, it's easy to say that. I'll acknowledge that.
Now that I've seen this whole situation, let me just say, yes, they shouldn't have, this game clearly, he went so far out of his way to be like, this is an art piece. This is not glorifying the fucking shooter.
I think it was the wrong move to delete that game. I think that logistically, even though it probably was the financially good decision, it was a bad idea.
Yeah. Again, this game clearly did not deserve to be banned. This was just like a practical thing. I understand he didn't want hit pieces from legacy media smearing Newgrounds for the next year because they wouldn't take this fucking game down. But the game clearly does not deserve. It's clearly has a message. It fulfills every requirement you could have for needing it to be count as a tasteful piece of media.
For needing it to be tasteful. Yeah.
Even if you think it is tasteless, because
you can still argue it. You can still argue that it's tasteless.
It's a game where you shoot kids. You don't have to like the thing. I'm just saying, there's a difference between liking it.
It didn't necessarily have to be based directly on the event.
Right.
But you could also argue that that's what makes it so impactful.
It makes it more uncomfortable.
Talking about it right now if he didn't do
you were
that,
absolutely right.
You know?
If it was just the game was called The Slaying of Sandy Hook Elementary, so it was just the title alone might have been what really did it. But I understand, I totally get why he'd want to, because it makes it more uncomfortable and it makes it more related to real life, which is what he wanted you to do at the end when he was trying to get you to call your congressman or whatever.
Yeah, I don't really have the answer. There's no comfortable, succinct answer to this entire story. Mm-hmm. But I think I just wanted to tell the story of PiGPEN because he's kind of been given a bad rap.
It would be easy to write that guy off as a troll, as just an edgelord.
And we kind of did. We just said, he's a fucking
right.
He's
he
a piece
definitely
of shit.
was.
He's an edgelord. He's a troll.
He's 21 though.
But he did grow
young.
as an artist. He did create an interesting piece of art, and it did affect Newgrounds and how it grew. And how its culture shaped.
It affected Newgrounds. It got people talking. It did a lot of good things.
And it sucks that I haven't seen really anyone acknowledge this story. No one really even knows about this game anymore.
Right. Yeah, if it's not even on Newgrounds, then and how many people are going to bother to go track down a video recording of it? So
I don't know how popular this podcast will ever get, but I do hope that you, the viewer, take away that it's okay to be provocative and it's okay to do it just for fun if you really want to, but the best pieces of art combine it with a point. And I think when you just aim to be a provocateur, you kind of miss your ability to make a greater impact on things you care about, the things the causes you want to champion. It really is a shame that we have kind of sanitized ourselves to not let art like this exist. This happened 10 years ago now. It's 2022. This came out in 2012. And it is just kind of bizarre that what is allowed online and what we allow to consume is just getting so strict and so safe to where even just a joke about Pico is a controversy.
Mm-hmm. It's a touchy subject. I get it for sure, but it is very unfortunate that he made this game. It's just this weird chicken and egg because he probably wouldn't have made this second game without making that first game. But if he hadn't made that fucking VTech game, maybe they would have been less likely to paint him with the same brush for this Sandy Hook game. I don't know. But yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Like some people just act like shitheads and they're like, oh, it's just satire, bro. But like, if you're not satirizing a specific thing, then it's completely hollow. There's no point. You have to have a intentionality behind your art.
Like all good political discussions, the answer falls in the middle, guys. Exactly in the middle.
Exactly
You
in
have
the
to be a
middle. You know, guys,
centrist, but-
I've learned something today. But yeah, like you were sort of saying, we're not here to like tell you the answer. We're sort of just here so you, the viewer, can think about art and just how we
Yeah.
engage with it.
And think about this interesting piece of Newgrounds
Right.
history. Sorry, I'm chewing. I'm eating an M&M.
You piece of shit.
I've thought about making it into a video, but I realized that it'd probably be better fit for just kind of this kind of format.
Right. Some things, that's one thing I like about, that's one reason I want to do this podcast, because there's plenty of stories that like, and I guess it could be a video, but it'd be such a hassle. And like, it just sort of it sort of fits better in a more loosely scripted podcast discussion format.
Yeah, I can't
Plus, like,
introduce like 2 mass shootings. And,
yeah,
like,
I was going to say,
keep
not to
that
be
up
too
on
cynical,
YouTube.
but that video get demonetized as fuck if you're trying to, especially if you had to like show footage of stuff, you know what I mean?
Not even demonetized. It'd get removed.
Yeah.
That video would not be allowed on YouTube, I don't think.
Right. I don't know, man. We'll see. Hopefully this fucking podcast app doesn't get removed. We'll see. If you're hearing this right now, the viewer, then we made it.
You want to do the outro again, buddy?
We don't like have a set outro, but thanks for listening to NETLORE episode 2. I've been Cybershell, and my co-host has been Bedhead Bernie. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye. See you next episode.